Super Rugby round 8 is done and dusted. No real upsets on this board. I think pretty much all the favourites got their wins. Some of the margins, though, perhaps either a bit more or a bit less than what was originally predicted. So we will start with the first one. The Waratahs beating the Sunwolves 50 points to 29 in Tokyo. So the Waratahs, 2 tries to Gordon, Rona, Miller, Hegere, Hooper and Naiyaravoro also picking up tries. The Sunwolves, Little Wykes, Masarewa and Jimeno. So it's exactly what the Waratahs wanted. They wanted to go into Japan and pick up a bonus point win, keep that pressure on the Rebels who were on the bye, kind of outdo that performance that the Brumbies put in when they were in Tokyo. And they did exactly that. They put 50 points on them, scored a lot of tries. For large parts of the match were pretty dominant. So, I mean, it was a pretty breezy afternoon in Tokyo. So that was having an effect. Some of the lineouts were a bit messy. Some of the kicks were a bit funny. But yeah, for the most part, it was a high-scoring game early on. Kind of a flurry of points. The Sunwolves, their lineout was really struggling so much that they were even just kind of choosing to take the scrum in positions where you might ordinarily take a lineout, but they just still haven't got that right this season. We're 8 rounds done, and the lineout of the Sunwolves is just terrible, and it's just costing them because they can't get themselves into positions to take advantage of penalties that they're getting, and just can't retain their own ball. They're just turning it back over. So the Tars were good, a lot of early points, but they're probably not going to be happy with conceding 29 points. Although if there's something we've seen from the Sunwolves, they can score points. They can score points from anywhere. They play quick. So I guess it's not the end of the world. At the end of the day, nobody's going to remember that. But yeah, just in terms of their defence, they're probably not going to be overly happy. With the ball, I mean, damn, I don't know if you guys are old enough to have ever played Jonah Lomu Rugby on PlayStation 1. But watching Naiyaravoro run against the Sunwolves was kind of like that. Because in that game, if you put Fend onto Lomu, he would just become untackleable. And that was like the closest I've seen in a real-life version, just over and over again. Naiyaravoro was just running and guys were just bouncing off him. It was almost comical. So that they really had no answer for him. And he only got the 1 try, but he was a huge part of what they were doing. But yeah, in terms of the set plays, both sides had some pretty sweet moves. It led to some tries. So apart from the Sunwolves line out, they're getting some things right. And the Tars are improving that area as well. The penalty count was pretty bad. The Tars giving away a lot of penalties, so giving the Sunwolves more opportunities to get back into the match. But the Sunwolves tackle rate was pretty poor. So I keep harping on about these two things. It's just their defence and their lineouts. They need to get better, otherwise they're going to continue to score or to get kind of big scores put on them. The Sunwolves still are the best users of the whole I'm tackled, I will release the ball on the ground, pick it back up and go. That's how Little scored his try. So yeah, other teams do need to be aware of that. But I mean, there are other areas that they can kind of get back at the Sunwolves if they are kind of giving up ground in that way. But yeah, I'm surprised that the teams don't use it a bit more, because it does seem to be kind of a sneaky little tactic to gain a few meters. And teams are doing it, I think, more generally than last season, but the Sunwolves use it as a deliberate tactic. Yeah, so for the most part, for the Tars, it's a big win. It's a bonus point win. It keeps them well in the Aussie Conference. And yeah, they need to keep things up because they're putting themselves in a good position. They're finally starting to look, I mean, it's always hard to say when they're playing the Sunwolves, but they're starting to look like a proper team. Like they had a few stuttering performances at the start of the season, but it's actually starting to look pretty slick. It takes the pressure off the coach as well. For the Sunwolves, it's just another week, another loss. If you read some of their Facebook stuff, I mean, even Google Translate's not very accurate, but you can at least get a feeling for it. And yeah, the goodwill for anything Jamie Joseph's doing is kind of evaporating pretty quickly. Just not happy with the way the team's performing. There doesn't seem to be any development. You looked at the crowd and it seemed to be less than in other weeks. And yeah, a bit of criticism from some of the fans anyway, that they're not picking more Japanese players, that it's kind of, a hodgepodge kind of mix of guys who maybe don't want to be there or maybe aren't going to get as much out of a Super Rugby season as some kind of domestic players. So I don't know, like there's comparisons to what Eddie Jones was doing with Japan and how Jamie Joseph's not going to get anywhere near that. I mean, that kind of remains to be seen. I still think Joseph's a pretty good coach from what he's done with the Highlanders, but he still hasn't found the magic formula yet with the Sunwolves. It might just be that he needs more time. He didn't get things right straight away with the Highlanders either, so maybe it's a bit too early to jump the gun there. Sunwolves go on to play the Blues at home. If there's a result you're going to get, it might just be against the Blues. Never know. And for the Waratahs, they go on to play the Reds back at home, although they'll be playing at the SCG for the next game, which will be a bit different. So, yeah, that'll be a real kind of Aussie clash of two rivals. New South Wales versus Queensland is always a big one. Right. The next game saw the Chiefs beat the Blues 21 points to 19 down in Hamilton. So a pretty low-scoring affair compared to the rest of these games. Chiefs tries from Wainui and a penalty try. The Blues just the one to Parsons, and a few penalties for each side. So 21-19 makes it look like it was a pretty close game. The Blues lost it to the Chiefs at the end. Or more accurately, the Chiefs kind of won it at the end. The Blues are pretty flattered by the scoreline. I think they were under the pump for huge periods of this game. Almost the whole second half, the Blues were just defending in their own 22, in their own half, couldn't get out, couldn't get any ball. The stats were atrocious. The first half wasn't quite as bad. But still the Chiefs were putting on a lot of pressure. The Blues took a few early points to start with. The lead changed a few times in this game. The Chiefs just guilty of giving away too many penalties, probably keeping the Blues in it a bit. Perifetta, who's touted as the Blues' kind of next big thing, clearly still needs a bit of improvement. I know he's still young. He doesn't kick the ball that well from hand. Restarts and just kicking for touch. He wasn't getting that many meters. Definitely a work on for him. But like I said, he's still young, so still got room to improve. His running game is good, but still areas to improve. Gatland came on fairly early because after 30 minutes, Damien McKenzie went off, Jerome Kaino went off, George Marlow went off. A lot of guys were going off early this game. It was a pretty high toll being taken on the players. Gatland was taking the kicks for touch and looked to be getting a fair few more meters. I mean, it just makes a huge difference when you look at some teams who've got guys with a really big boot. It just gives you an extra 10 meters, or when you're doing your exit plays, which is what the Blues really struggled with in this game. Just like it was pointed out in the comments last week, the way Kerwin Bosch can kind of just peel off so many meters. It just relieves pressure on your team, gets you guys heads up, and gets those forwards really going forward, whereas the Blues were kind of really struggling. And the Blues scrum was under pressure, which was kind of what cost the Blues the penalty try at the end of the game. But yeah, the Chiefs had just so many chances in the second half, all the ball, and the Blues were always just hanging on, and eventually the pressure just kind of told. Yeah, the penalty try was coming, and eventually, yellow card to the Blues, and Chiefs were over for the penalty try. So I didn't have any problem with it, to be honest. I know some Blues fans on the Facebook page, again, are bemoaning the ref's decision, but, I mean, come on. If the Blues had won that, it would have been robbery, honestly. They didn't deserve to win that game at all. The Chiefs really guilty of throwing away quite a few chances, just loose passes, knock-ons, silly penalties. Just the Chiefs probably should have won by a fair bit more, and they won't be happy with that. I mean, he still got the win, but they're not going to be overly kind of chuffed with themselves for just a 2-point victory. So yeah, the Blues almost fluked a win, got a bonus point, but not very good performance. The Chiefs should have won by more. They'll have to play better because the Chiefs have got the Hurricanes away next week. And if you don't take your chances against them, you will get punished. You can afford to do that against the Blues, not really against the Canes. For the Blues, they've got the Sunwolves away. I mean, the season's pretty much over for the Blues at this point, but if the Sunwolves beat them, Tana's job is probably on the line. It's not at that point yet, but yeah, you can't lose to the Sunwolves 2 seasons in a row, and the Sunwolves have been so poor this season. If the Blues lose to them, then it's pretty catastrophic. But we will see. That is one for next week. The next game was a fair bit more interesting. The Brumbies took down the Reds 45 points to 21. So lots of tries for the Brumbies, an area they've not been that great with this season. So Fainga Nasarani got 2. Penny, Rory Arnold scored a great galloping try. I've never seen him with the ball running that far to score a try. It was tremendous. Carter and Pocock for the Reds, Tupou and Faiwe Sotia. So you can see by the Brumbies try scorers, ain't many backs in that lot, but a really good performance from the Brumbies. Kind of a capitulation from the Reds, which was interesting to see. The first, to be fair, it was a dewy and kind of slippery field, which did have an effect on some of the play. There was a fair bit of messy or slippy kind of things going on, which was largely because of the amount of dew on the field. But the first 20 minutes, it was all the Reds. The Brumbies looked god-awful, and I was thinking, man, the Brumbies are just a terrible team. Their coach probably needs to get fired at that point because it was just so bad. It was just all Reds, and it was kind of looking to be a repeat of the earlier fixture in Brisbane this year. Lots of scrum penalties, all possession for the Reds. They went out to a 15-0 lead. And they only scored 21 points in the whole game, but 15-0 they were ahead. But man, did the Brumbies come back, and credit to them for that. I shouldn't have been thinking what I was thinking. I should have kind of had a bit more faith in what the Brumbies were doing. Their maul kind of got back on track. You know, in the last few years, the Brumbies have been a really good team for getting rolling maul tries, and they did a really slick one in this game, which made me kind of think that maybe they're back on track. And the Reds just didn't really have any answer for them. In the second half, their scrum was far less effective. The Brumbies were much improved. Naisarani probably outperformed Caleb Timu. These guys have been 2 of the kind of outstanding loose forwards in Super Rugby in the Aussie Conference this year. Naisarani was having a bit of a blinder. And I thought Karevi was kind of quiet. He's been a guy who just X-Factor, always does something. Wasn't able to do that much in this game. The Brumbies kind of had him pretty well contained. Higginbotham went off hurt, but he said in the post-match that it was nothing serious. For the Brumbies, a bit worrying Hawara with his boot, because his boot's been kind of a key to their turnaround to the season this year, was not very accurate, and they had to have Liliafano taking the kicks towards the end. But yeah, at the start of the game, the Brumbies' possession was 22% when the Reds were up by that 15 points. But by the end of the game, it was towards 60. So it just shows you the big shift in the way this game went. The Brumbies just, man, did they come back. So yeah, big bonus point win. Unlike the Blues, I think they probably keep their season alive with this. So yes, still much to play for the Brumbies. Definitely some questions answered because they hadn't scored a lot of tries, but they did in this game. For the Reds, it's kind of another question of just where they're at. Because, yeah, they just didn't have any answer for what the Brumbies were doing. There wasn't any plan B. Once they couldn't get the scrum ascendancy and once they couldn't get any ball, it was just struggles. So, yeah, maybe a few work-ons for them. Their record kind of evens out now. They're not in the positive territory anymore. But, you know, they're a young side. They're still learning. So I don't think we can be too harsh on them. I don't think before the season anything was expected of them. So they're already exceeding expectations. And, yeah, there's going to be a few bumps on the way as they kind of get on this road to success. For the Brumbies, they travel away to the Highlanders, so that's going to be a big test for them to see if this is a legit result or if it's just the Reds having a poor night. And like I said, the Reds are going to be travelling to play the Waratahs. So, yep, still some good results to come for those guys. Probably, maybe, we'll see. The next game I didn't see live, but the Lions took down the Stormers 52 points to 31. Very high scoring game. So for the Lions, Tambwe must have heard that some Bulls guys have been scoring lots of tries, with Strauss getting some tries last week. He wasn't having that, so he got 4 all on his own. He had a hat-trick within, I think, 12 minutes, which is just ridiculous. So also Mapo, Smith, Mostert and Combrink on his return got tries. For the Stormers, Lowe, Willemse, De Vet, and a penalty try. So yeah, 52 points to 31. Comfortable bonus point win for the Lions. Yeah, they're still a cut above in the South African Conference. I think this was a chance for the Stormers to put some pressure on, but it was a chance lost. And like I said, a hat-trick within 12 minutes for Tambwe. It's just another disastrous start for the Stormers. It's not the first time we've seen them do that this season, where they don't start playing the game early enough. It's just like you can't give teams a massive lead and expect to keep competing. So very slick from the Lions, putting points on with early pressure. Interestingly, the Storms had a lot more possession, a lot more territory, building a lot of phases in the first half. Just couldn't do anything with it. So, yeah, 31 points, 10 down at halftime. The Stormers just really kind of lacking some clinical edge, some poor kicks. And like Tambwe's 4th try, the Stormers should have had that kind of wrapped up all day. It was kind of a kick cross, and he just kind of plucked it. And the Stormers were just kind of passively, not actively trying to get the ball. And the Lions were just on it. So, yeah, impressive from Tambwe. A few penalties conceded from the Lions, which will be concerning, but man, it's the scoreboard that counts. So Stormers got a couple of tries late on. Lions had a yellow card, which kind of makes the scoreboard look a bit more respectable, but the game was already kind of done and dusted by that point. So yeah, it's pretty disappointing if you're a Stormers fan, but yeah, the Lions with less possession, less territory, conceding more penalties, just still able to cut them to bits and score 52 points. Keep the home crowd happy before they have the bye and then go on tour. So for the Stormers, it is another away loss, and they're still clearly behind the Lions in terms of where they're at for their season. They've both got the bye because they've both been playing since week 1 without a rest. Stormers hopefully get a few of their big guns back in the coming weeks, which will maybe see them improve because they're going to need it. For the Lions, it's a good win to get them back on track after a few bumpy weeks. They've got a tour coming up, so they'll need to be on song and pick up some results, because you can bet some of the teams who have already done their tour, being the Shark, I think it's all the South African teams now. Yeah, Sharks, Stormers and Bulls have all done their tour, so they will be picking up results back in South Africa while they're away, so they'll need to try and get some results. Now, the 5th game of the round is the one that just finished. Saw it this morning. So Saturday, Argentina time. The Crusaders down the Jaguares 40 points to 14. Crusaders 2 tries to Bridge, 2 to Mataele, try to Hunt and Crotty. So compared to the Brumbies, this is all backs, not many forwards there. For the Jaguares, it's Tukule and Boffelli who scored tries. It's kind of a similar story that, like, the Jaguares, man, did they have a lot of ball and they had a lot of territory, but they just could not crack that Crusaders defense. Crusaders were just defending like demons, and the Jaguares didn't have an answer for it. Sanchez was one of the few guys who actually looked capable of unlocking that Crusaders defense, but not able to set up a guy clean enough to break through and get a try. They had plenty of line breaks, but just not able to kind of get that next pass out or draw a man and then pass. Just whatever they were doing, it wasn't enough. Crusaders really, really strong on defense. The line out for the Jaguares, man, because they were getting a few penalties. They would kick it long, and there was kind of Sunwolves-esque. They just could not secure their own line-out ball to attack the Crusaders, and it was just letting the Crusaders off the hook, whereas the Crusaders were just sharp. Anytime they got a chance, they were just going in and scoring. It was really cutting. It would be pressure, pressure, pressure from the Jaguares, and then boom, Crusaders score. It was just, yeah, really lethal stuff. Second half was probably a bit better from the Jaguares. They managed to score some points at last. Boffelli's try was especially nice. That's what they needed, you know, that kind of quick hands or whatever it was, just to score for the Crusaders. Mataele is really looking good. He might be going to put his uncle out of a job because yeah, he's looking to really provide the difference in terms of just getting over the advantage line, making breaks. The Jaguares tackle rate was only like 64%. And that's how the Crusaders are going to cut you to bits if you're only just getting over one out of every 2 tackles. But the Crusaders were at like 84. So that's one of the big differences in the game, honestly. Just the Jaguares could not stop what the Crusaders were offering, and they in turn couldn't break through the Crusaders' wall. If this game could be kind of summarized in one set of play, it was the Jaguares had an attacking scrum in the Crusaders 22, and they would get a penalty from the scrum and call for another scrum, keep the pressure on, and again and again. It happened like 3 or 4 times. And then the Crusaders subbed a couple of forwards off, front rowers, and then the next scrum, the Crusaders turned them over. Like they won the scrum, or at least the scrum kind of went to a big mess, and the Crusaders ended up with the ball. And then within a minute, the Crusaders had scored. And then within 2 minutes, the Crusaders scored again. That was the game. The Jaguares pressure, 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 and then concede. So yeah, man, Crusaders are just deadly. And yeah, the game had a few moments with the TMO. It was just really slow. They didn't need to take that long to make calls, so that was a bit disappointing. And there was a bit of handbags on both sides. It was interesting in this Blues-Chiefs game that there was one moment where Akira Ioane and Brodie Retallick, who are often guys up in each other's faces, were kind of like, you know, holding each other's collars and really up in each other. Still handbag stuff, nothing happened, but it was kind of like, ooh, interesting. These big boys. This game, it was like Nicholas Sanchez and Mitch Hunt, like, in each other. So it was, yeah, not quite as an impressive matchup, but yeah, they've still got a bit of fire in their bellies as well. So yeah, the Jaguares once again can't put wins together. They're really not able to catch up in the South African Conference at the minute. You'd think the playoffs are looking a pretty far prospect at this point, especially having had a pretty decent home run. Not able to pick up many wins. For the Crusaders, it's a big bonus point away from home despite travel, despite injuries. And yeah, that puts them top of the New Zealand Conference, with the Hurricanes not able, in the Friday game, Hurricanes not able to pick up a bonus point win in their game. They were lucky to get a win, really. So yeah, the top of New Zealand Conference as they go into a bye. For the Jaguares, they are away to the Rebels, so that will be a big test for them. But yeah, some interesting results this week. What were your picks? Any interesting moments that you guys thought? But yeah, like I said, no real upsets, so no big surprises. Probably this scoreline, it was the biggest surprise of all. Blues close, but really not close. Sunwolves kind of more of the same. Stormers more of the same away from home, and the Jaguares just unable to pick it up this week. So yep, interesting. I'm about to go have a look at my power rankings and see how the teams are looking. Pretty sure Blues and Sunwolves not going to be doing too great. Just saying. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you again soon.